Hello and welcome everybody to our webinar. This has been highly anticipated with Dave Small and Faraday for quite some time now. Dave, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Chaz, happy to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, I know we've been talking about this for some time, so we're very excited. And the topic, Dave and I got together, we figured what would be the most value we could drive to the audience, and we came up with smarter dials. How lead scoring transforms your outbound strategy. So some of these concepts you guys may be familiar with, some of them you may not. We're going to keep it super open, and we're hoping to drive some major value home here throughout this event. So Dave works with Faraday. What is Faraday? What do you guys do?
Great question, Chaz. Yeah, Faraday is we're a modern data company, and what we really do is specialize on data about your consumers and about your leads. So really the questions that Faraday is going to help a brand, solve for themselves are, who are these people? What are they going to do? How can we better nurture this opportunity to drive a long-lasting relationship? So ultimately, Faraday is going to be able to deliver three kind of core data components to you about leads and customers. One, we can help flesh out the identity. So you have email and phone, but you need address. You need additional identifiers to contact these people. The second piece of data is kind of demographic and property, and basic data about them as a person and about them as a consumer. So how old is their house? When was their roof last done? How much money do they make? These kind of things that are really important to their buying decisions. And then the last, which is really our bread and butter, is predictive and custom data that's specific to you and your brand. So, for example, is this person likely to buy my product in the next couple of days, right? Like, should I be taking an appointment with this person right now? Is there a potential upsell opportunity here for my specific product and services? So Faraday can really easily build these predictive data points on your past data and then apply it to all your incoming and future customers as well.
That's super amazing. And you said a lot there, but the way I look at it is you guys have a lot of data points. You're able to match a lot of leads and a lot of records to extra data. And I always look at that as, you might learn something new. So let's say you have a lead or a contact, I'll say, that their name, their email, their phone number, and maybe their address. I think with what you guys provide, you're able to add on maybe they're an avid, moviegoer, or maybe they are, they have 3 credit cards, or maybe they drive a Honda. Not exactly these data fields, but you guys know a lot of different data points that are tied back to that individual. Is that correct? Am I understanding properly?
Totally. And I think, the power in this massive data set is not necessarily those individual data points. It's really how they make up a person as a buyer, as a consumer. Right, because there's so many different components there.
Yeah, so using all that data, I can share this, which is very exciting. I was actually a customer of Faraday in the solar space, so I worked with a large solar organization, and we had onboarded Faraday, and we were using them to, again, what they're best for, analyze our data and tell us which people are most likely to convert or take an appointment or put solar on their roof. Right. And, I have to simplify it a little bit because I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it. I'm sure you guys have this crazy engine, but on the most simple terms, I would say, an example in my mind is, hey, here's all of our data. And after analyzing it, for whatever reason, we've identified that people that drive a hybrid Prius are 10 times more likely to go solar because they love clean energy. Right.
Totally.
Like, very simple example. But that's the type of trend that you guys would maybe use on the back end to then drive a, score, right? And we're going to talk about lead scoring in a minute. To drive a score that, okay, this person is X% more likely to convert or take an appointment.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And we can even tell you, hey, the reason that Chaz got a really high score or a low score is because, owns his home, drives a Prius, and makes this much money, right? Like, we can tell you those top indicators about a particular lead. So it's not a black box. It very much is like, hey, we have done this big old calculation for you, and we're going to show our work, just like in math class, right? Like, this is why we actually believe what we can't. It's not a magic number. This has real math and work behind it. And here's how we deduced it.
And I don't know if you could tell, Dave, I'm testing myself during this event right here in front of everybody. I'm making sure I understand, so I'm doing that for the audience as well. So you guys can all have a deeper understanding of kind of what it is Faraday does, their data models. Everyone likes to use that word AI, it's gotten very popular, AI, but I think it was back, I don't know the exact year, 2017, 18, 19, somewhere in that range when I first started working with you guys. AI wasn't as popular, back then. People weren't really talking about it. Big data models weren't really being spoken about, So I think you guys were earlier to the game than this whole AI explosion we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and there's different types of AI, right? Like when we say AI now, we all think about like the chat GPTs and the large language models. Like really what Faraday is focused on is core data infrastructure, machine learning, and then taking that data and applying it to really your tried and true channels, your call centers, your direct mail programs, your door-to-door canvassing. Like that's the place where Faraday's data and scores really make an impact. It's not some shiny widget. It's tried and true technology. We've been working with that solar company since then, so
that's amazing.
It's a testament to some of the long-term, relationships and, results we've been driving for our customers.
Awesome. So let's get into the meat of it, right? We've been talking about lead scoring. We've thrown that term out there a couple times throughout this. Dave, can you define lead scoring and kind of how you see it being used and maybe some of the things that contribute to your score?
Yeah, absolutely. So, ultimately what our clients want to know is I'm buying leads. I'm, paying, spend a bunch of money on Meta or on Google. I've got affiliates. I've got referrals. I've got all these different potential channels for my leads. Not all leads are created equal, right? So how can we look under the hood a bit and understand which lead I'm dialing first, which leads I'm prioritizing, which leads I'm reaching out to with a particular offer or script, maybe even, rep assignment. Does Chaz do much better with this certain type of person and Dave do much better with this other type of person, right? So to understand each of these leads more is really to score them. And the score depends on what's most important for you as an organization. Is it booking appointments? Is it setting up that time to actually visit on site? Is it, making sure that they understand the particular offer? Like where in your funnel, if you drive an incremental conversion increase, are you going to make huge gains down the line?
Sure.
And that's a big part of our
That's major. And we're going to circle back. This is all going to come for a full circle. So we're kind of going through the chronological thought process here, but this is critical, right? Understanding lead scoring, what goes into the score. And I'm going to chime in a minute in terms of how you can use that score. And there's a lot of cool things you could do. I'm sure, Dave, you could build on me there. When we get to that point. There's something else that we wanted to talk about here. So lead scoring is topic number one, right? Finding out what contributes to a higher, more likely to convert lead or opportunity to one that is maybe not so good, and then using those insights intelligently. There's something else that's important that, I think a lot of companies may not be doing today, and I think Faraday offers this, but I just want to talk about the topic in general, and that's lead enrichment or data enrichment. Right. So now you've got a lead or an opportunity that, some information about, but now you've got even more information that, you are able to tie into that, individual. So how does that help you in formulating your scripts? Yeah. How does that help you in, the approach you take when you speak with that person? Sometimes you can learn a lot about somebody and maybe you don't want to say something that's too scary. Oh yeah, I see you might, drive a Jeep. Whoa, how did you know that? I'm opting in for insurance, like life insurance. You're telling me I'm driving it. So sometimes it's too much, but where can you use that data enrichment piece to add value to the process?
Yeah, Faraday's customers get started with us in a couple of different ways. So, sometimes they'll say, look, I don't really care how the meal is made. I just want to know, like, is Chaz likely to be a customer or not? Is he likely to buy, right? Sure. And that's where we're doing that predictive custom data point. And we're crunching a bunch of data and then, that you have in your system, that we have in our system, and we're giving you back that really neat, like, Chaz is a 90 out of 100, like, go forth.
Sure.
The other opportunity is like, hey, we have internal data scientists maybe, and we have our own algorithms running and we have our own models in place, but we actually lack some of that fundamental data that Faraday you already have. We can just give you the ingredients to the meal and you can cook the meal yourself.
There you go. That's cool.
So that's an option. But then it could be even more simple, you know, like the solar example. Hey, like I'm not going to talk to anyone who rents their home. So just like I need to every lead that comes in is it an owner or renter, right? Like just so I can just quickly like do a segmentation and flag them and disqualify them.
Right.
So like we have all different types of flavors of what ultimately Faraday is going to enrich your data.
Sure.
And when it comes down to it, do you want like a simple, you know, a consumer demographic property data point, or do you want Faraday to really process all that information for you and give you back those kind of custom scores for your business?
Sure. Well, this is exciting. And this is where I'm going to jump in. I think this is where we've got our base. We're talking a little bit about lead scoring and data scoring. We're talking a little about data enrichment. Now you've gotten all this data. You've got your scores. You know which ones are more likely to convert. You know which ones are less likely to convert. Maybe you've got some additional data. How are you going to use that? You know, so a little step to the side, not really to the side, but, you know, in working.
It's the most important part, data. Right? Like, cool, we have a bunch of data about our leads.
Right. Now, how are you going to use the data, right? In reports, you can have, you know, the path to a treasure chest. If you don't actually follow the map and get to the treasure chest, what are you going to do? You know,
reporting and dashboards don't inherently make you money. You know what it does? A tool like Call Tools, where you can then take all this intelligence and go actually do something with it, right?
Sure. And not even just Call Tools, but I'll speak in that context, right? Because that's what I'm familiar with working with thousands of customers, is that when you're creating your dialing strategy, right, there's different levels, but it all comes down to intentionality, especially in today's, you know, environment with outbound dialing and all the things that are going on. You want to be very intentional about who you're targeting, when you're targeting them, and having these insights is so critical, because I see, you know, all the time clients will come on, they'll maybe have some data coming in, they'll just treat everything the same. Okay, we'll put it into the system, we'll call everything, and maybe you'll get some level of success with that, right? You'll be able to get a couple appointments, a couple sales, whatever your use case is. Then I see some people are like, you know what, I want to schedule, you know, create a separate you know, piece of data or list over here where I'm going to target people who have said that they were interested before. Okay, now you're getting somewhere, right? That's very basic. You're taking a previous, you know, disposition, a previous conversation, saying, okay, based on what they said here, I think that they're a better person to call for future for this reason, right? Now, when we get to the next level, it's about having these scores, right? And then using these scores and calling in an order that makes sense. And maybe having different pockets of lists, right? Or lists of data. So maybe you've got people with, you know, the highest score over here. And then maybe you'll pair that with some of your internal data, right? Faraday or whatever, you know, third-party system scored this, or whatever our internal metric is scored for the highest propensity to close here or convert here. And then I'm going to pair that with, okay, here's also everybody who said that they were not interested, right? Whoa, not interested. I love talking about this one. Not interested. So Faraday gave them a high score. We spoke with them, Chaz. They said they're not interested. You're telling me that might be somebody I still want to talk to? Well, yeah. You know, there's a reason why they got a high score, and you scored them highly, likely to convert, right? And the not interested one, just on a little tangent, is one that we've seen over and over again. There's a lot of reasons why somebody might have said they weren't interested. You called them when they were driving their kids to school. Oh, yeah, I'm busy right now. I'm not interested. You called them at work. Maybe, you know, there's bias here, but maybe it was a male voice and now it's a female voice. Hey, yeah, I was looking into solar. Yeah, thank you for calling me. You know, so using these insights, you can get very intentional. And I see the call centers and the people that are doing outbound that are really crushing it are always intentional about what they're calling, and they have a method in terms of the order in which they call things. Dave, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, I've got like a really great example of one of our customers who kind of had a similar issue, right? So
sure.
For them, they're getting all these leads in. They have like these particularly, you know, they're like many of our customers, their lead flow is not it's not steady. They've got like higher lead volume periods and lower lead volume periods, right? And so what they were finding is during those high lead volume periods where they were dialing a lot more leads than they really could, where they were over their capacity, they basically were just their conversion rate was dropping by like 20% Okay.
Wow.
What they then did was they said, all right, well, like we need to prioritize, especially on these high volume days. And then they were able to apply Faraday, right? And just say, all right, we've got all these leads coming in, score them and rank them for me, best to worst. And then call them. And then they were able to get their conversion rate up 13%, right? Because all of a sudden they are dialing, they can't dial everyone at the same time, right? And so they are prioritizing, and by prioritizing, they were able to drive a significant investment, on top of what they were paying.
That's huge. And you know what? You just triggered it for me, and I'm happy because I would have lost it, but you brought it back. Think about all the data that you have, whatever industry you're in, whatever business. A lot of companies out there are focusing on their new leads, their hot leads, their new funnel, right? What about those thousands and thousands of backlog leads that you have from 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Those people were interested at some point, and you never got to them, So rather than just taking a, cannon and trying to call all of them and follow up, hey, I saw you were interested 6 months ago, Dave, and I wanted to reach out, and talk to you about this service. Why not use the intelligence and the data that's out there to take that data and prioritize? Okay, here's all of your old data, but of this data set, these are the people that we think are going to be the best for you, and being intentional about who you're calling in order. And like you said, you'll see a lift. You definitely will. Have that.
And on our side, like we are constantly updating our data we are not an originator of data. We work with all the big data providers, right? So we are updating all these different streams of data into our graph. So all of a sudden something changed, a life event or something changed with that lead. Their lead score might have been really low when they came in. And all of a sudden it's really high, right? So watching those fluctuations and those changes in those scores are going to allow you to prioritize over time what your list should look like.
Yeah. And I think there's something that's jumping out at me too. Are you guys tracking this? Are you looking at your data? Are you running meaningful KPI reports to know what's working and what's not working? That's the foundation of all of this, right? If you are not looking today inside your business, inside your calling strategy, inside of your leads, and understanding what's converting, what's not converting, and why, that's the first brick. So everything we're talking about here today, you could throw it out the window. And if there's one thing you leave here with today in value, you need to understand your data as it currently sits today. You need to figure that out. Dave, I'm sure you come across it all the time. People maybe engage you guys. They're looking into your platform, to see what you guys are up to, help score their data. And they have no idea where their current numbers even are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly, so it's one of the things that Faraday does that I think is quite unique in the space is that we actually have this role at Faraday called a forward deployed data scientist. And so their job is to really spend time with our customers in the first 90 days as they onboard to make sure that we are building the right models, that we're using the right modeling strategies, the right data to drive meaningful results.
Sure.
So it's not like hey, here's the platform, good luck. Like we are there to very much help our customers onboard and leverage this thing so that it's going to, drive those results they're looking for.
That's incredible. And there was one other side note I had here I wanted to touch on. With all this data that you guys have, enrichment and all this, for inbound calls, there's some high volume inbound centers we work with that are taking in, maybe transfers, maybe they're doing pay-per-call, whatever it may be. But in that use case, right, you're getting an inbound call and you don't know anything about that person. So I believe you guys have something that you do to identify that phone number and maybe pull in some data.
Yeah, it's a great point. So we have two ways to basically deliver scores for you. One is batch. Hey, we look at your CRM, we look at your lead file, and then we score it all and give it back to you, and we run that on an updating basis. The other is we'll basically score everyone in the country, and we will just hold that score for you. And then you say, hey, Dave Small just showed up. What's his score for our service? So that's really using that inbound call center use case. Someone dialed in, I've got their name and phone number, I'm hitting Faraday up and then saying, hey, what's his score for our product? And what's his score for that upsell I'm trying to do? And what's his score for, our financing package? And, what's his persona? Because I'm going to tailor my script to his demographic persona. If you're a guy with young kids, you're going to give him one messaging versus he's empty nester. You're different, right?
Sure.
And so that use case there having those scores just like cached, ready to go, and in real time you ping Faraday and get all this intelligence back on someone who just dialed into you. As soon as you get that phone number, as soon as you get that name, huge unlock there for inbound call centers.
That's incredible. And data is key. I think that's another key takeaway from this session here is the more you know, you can make informed decisions and you can really put a strategy around all the information that you're taking in. Really data is everything. And it's probably said, you probably hear it all the time as you're maybe attending events like this, as you're talking to people, as you're evaluating your business. But at the end of the day, it's about getting the data into the proper format. So it's giving you intelligent insights and then using that data to make decisions that are meaningful and pairing it with the proper tools for your business. I think that's really pulling this full circle here, and how, using a platform like Faraday or like Call Tools to facilitate the data once it's been analyzed can really make a huge difference in your business. Dave, anything that is coming to mind for you that we didn't touch on today? I want to make sure that we're really, driving home the value here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, idea that it really comes back to the data. I think we're seeing, all of marketing has AI imbued in it in some way.
The buzzword.
Everyone's going to have AI this, AI that. But really when it comes down to it is like, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. So you got to be thinking about like strong data foundations and how your data is unique to you and your business and your customers.
Right.
And that's really where our perspective comes into play. Because you can go buy off-the-shelf third-party data. It's pretty ubiquitous. You can use your internal data that you have, but it's only going to get you so far. It's when you have something that makes it really easy to combine those two data sets, the like consumer file that everyone's got and your unique data that only you've got, that's going to give you a really smart, really in-depth view of each customer and each lead, and going to allow you to maximize that interaction you have with them.
Yeah. And one thing too, that I don't want to get lost here, just because you're getting these likelihood to convert scores, you're prioritizing those, by no means are we saying not to get to the rest of your data as well, right? This is giving you a prioritization, a sort order, if you will, in the order in which you want to make your follow-ups and get your opportunities in front of your team. But you still want to work your full data set, right? Because you might be surprised. You might find things that you're converting for some reason that you can then use to make your model even stronger, and drive insights. So I don't want to lose that. That's something that in a previous life and that I always talk about with our customers, no data is ever truly dead. I don't think that a lead or an opportunity is ever truly, a no. It's just a no right now.
It's a temporarily not one.
Right. So being sure to activate and reactivate your database and your prospects and your leads, so critical. I mean, I couldn't tell you the amount of times in the solar industry where I saw somebody who had opted in, and 2 years later on a follow-up attempt that we decided to make, they decided, oh, now's the time, I'm ready. So the example I always give, and Dave, if you can add to this if further, but it's only dead if it's a do not call request, which you have to honor and stop calling them and stop your outreach. Or if, even if they've put that service or that product on their home, and in the case of solar, maybe that one's dead or they're disqualified for a reason that can't be overcome. But other than those three reasons, you need to continuously follow up with everybody. And hold on a second. I'm not saying to call these people 10 times a day until they're angry, and that is not what I'm saying at all. But maybe if they're not interested, give them a month or two. Touch on them again. Maybe if these certain things are happening, you always have a future action to, stay in front of that opportunity.
Yeah, I think my perspective on that is do that outreach and that nurture with intention. And the only way you're going to be able to do that, like maybe they just need education. Maybe they just need time because they haven't, once they get that new job, it's going to make sense for them, right? Like when that customer came back, like you described, right? Something happened in their life to make them want to then put solar on their life. That's where the data comes in. Like the smarter you can be about meeting them where they're at, the better.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think let's just recap everything here. We started with a lot, and I want to bring it all full circle again. We're talking about smarter dials, how lead scoring transforms your outbound strategy. We started off talking about lead scoring and lead enrichment, how you can use external big data and databases to see trends within your data, score your data, right, with a propensity that it's going to convert, and even enrich your data, give you data points that maybe you didn't have previously to, analyze and use either in your scripting, in your reporting, in your analysis to see trends in what's working or maybe what's not working, right? Equally as important, what's not working. Then we talked about using those insights, whether it be through your phone dialing solution where you're making outbound phone calls, whether it be in your email follow-up strategy. We didn't touch on some of the other tactics, but email follow-up strategies, direct mail strategies, all of your follow-up is being used based on these data and these scores, your marketing and your outreach efforts, and then being able to, analyze that further. So it's kind of like a full circle. It's like you get the data in, you analyze it and enrich it, then you work it, you see what happens, then you reanalyze it again. So it goes kind of full circle in terms of what's working, and then the model gets stronger. And hopefully, as you're learning too, you have to have the mindset to look at this stuff, understand it, and the more you understand it, the better decisions you can make. What did I miss there, Dave? Anything you want to add?
I think that's great. It's true. It's not a silver bullet. Like, you're always learning, you're always iterating. Like, modeling is an iterative process. We try to make that as super easy as possible for our customers. And that's why we also pair them with a data scientist to help them do that. But yeah, no, this has been awesome. And I love how, a product like Call Tools will really help customers activate on the intelligence. Again, sure. Data on a shelf is data on a shelf. And so, sure. Being able to use something like what you all offer to prioritize, to run those segments, to think about cadence, to think about prioritization, exactly. That's huge.
Exactly. Yeah. And I didn't talk much about our solution, but we do have the ability to, set follow-up cadences, on your data. So rather than allowing your sales rep to, maybe work a couple, opportunities, maybe they call it once a day when you really want them to call it 2 times. Maybe they, skip a week of following up with that person. We have all the mechanisms in place to allow you to, set a cadence where when those things happen, they will be getting that next touch point. They will be getting that next phone call, and to keep your contact rates really high, to make sure that people are answering the phone and that you're able to have a meaningful conversation and convert. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure here, Dave. Thank you so much for taking the time. Anyone who's going to be at Affiliate Summit East, I know we're going to be out there next week. Dave and I are going to discuss that in a little bit. Great show. Otherwise, we're at a bunch of trade shows throughout the year, as I know Dave and Faraday are as well. I'm going to go ahead and put up some contact information. So if you'd like to follow up with Dave in relation to Faraday or anything that we discussed here, I'm sure even if you had questions or things you wanted to ask, he'd be more than willing to just share some insight. Here's his information. And then you also see I'm Chaz Tedesco with Call Tools, Chief Operating Officer. Any questions you have or anything you need. I love talking. I love giving away all of my value for free. Anything I know, I will share with you. So please take me up on that, and I will stay true to my word and share with you anything I'm thinking.
Yeah, Chaz, no, I really appreciate you taking taking the opportunity to, giving us the opportunity to have this conversation. It's been super fun. And yeah, like you mentioned, we're both going to be at Affiliate Summit East next week. Definitely, if you're going to be in New York, hit us up, and we'd love to continue the conversation in person.
It's a pleasure, everybody. Thank you. Keep track of your KPIs, keep track of your data, and do the best you can to use that intelligence to make meaningful decisions. Thank you all. Until next time, we'll see you guys soon.
See ya.